moving on, our next panel discussion of the day, where our speakers and industry experts will enlighten the audience today on creating a strong employment brand and how to earn the employer of the choice reputation. The esteemed panelists for this discussion are, let me invite Ms. Renu Rohtagi, Director Human Resources and Communications at Air Liquide India. Welcome, Renu. The next panelist is Priya Chakravarty, Head HR Excellence at Essar. Our third panelist is Willis Langford, Human Resources Director at Avnet. Our fourth and last panelist is Puneet Rajput, Senior Director HR India and South Asia at Thermo Fisher Scientific. The panel discussion will be moderated by Mr. Avinash Ananda, who is a leadership, business, and happiness coach. I welcome all the esteemed panel members and the moderator on stage.
Sadaf, thank you so much. That was Avinash, but that's okay. I got Sadaf right. Okay. I'm here with I'm here with some fantastic professionals. So happy to have interacted with you even before this whole program started. Thank you very much, White Page International organizers. I think you guys are doing absolutely fantastic. The latest count I heard was 180 CXOs live right now listening to all of us. So let's get started right away. We're talking about talent analytics. We're talking about employer of choice. We're talking about employment brand. So we're not just talking about how to attract, retain, or develop talent, but we're talking about how the employment brand or the organizational employer brand also affects, say, business growth, or how it also is affects these other stakeholders, maybe the clients or the community at large. Usually, I'm on the other side. I'm the one answering questions. So for me, this is a little different. But I watched Arnab Goswami, although I'm not sure that's a very good inspiration because he has to keep quiet. But I'll tell you something very quickly that I wanted to start with, which is an acronym which may help to set the pace. And then after that, I ask each of you a question, and then I wrap it up, and we go on to the next one, if that's okay with you guys. Yeah. If it's too fast, please do tell me. Brand. I'm looking at BRAND, where B is building an organization culture. I'm looking at the various factors. Then maybe we can move on. Priya, I can ask you the first question on the steps that are involved to probably build an employer brand. So I was looking at B being building an organization culture, R being probably the reward and recognition aspect of it. A is the awareness and the communication, which is the brand positioning possibly. The N would be next level leadership and what leadership can do to inspire brand building from an employer perspective or employee perspective. And D is development and growth of the employee within the brand. So these are just some of the factors. Would love to hear from you, Priya, to begin with. If you could share your ideas on what are the steps involved in building a powerful, good employer brand, please.
Firstly, thanks to White Page International for organizing this event. And thanks to you, Avinash, for the question. I can't think of it being more appropriate at a time when so many organizations are going through these huge transformations, whether it is technology, whether it is COVID, this has pushed them to do it. I think organizations firstly need to think that and realize that building an employer brand is not the responsibility of just HR or say corporate communications function, right? I think every employee that signs on the dotted line should take that responsibility for reputation management in their own way. And the reason I say that is because we're seeing a shift or a change that is emerging, and a lot of organizations are managing their reputation not just with its brand of being a good employer, but also in its investments in terms of how they're investing in ethically, socially, and environmentally sustainable businesses, right? So I think gone are the days when you're just looking at employee value proposition as a strong tool or a lever for building brands, but it's more about your HSE, your corporate governance and structure and framework, your financial practices, your business practices. I mean, we've seen organizations that has gone under the NPA in the recent times, and that has taken a big hit in terms of brand. So having said that, I think all of these directly or indirectly, helps an organization to attract, build and actually enhance their intellectual capital. There is a study that was carried out by Cone Communications. And what does the study say? Actually, it says that 75% of the millennials would take pay cut to work for a socially responsible company. Another data shows that 76% will consider to join an organization, or before deciding to join an organization, look at what the organization's social and environment commitment is. And out of the same survey, 64% said that they wouldn't take up a job if the potential employer does not have responsible financial practices. And I think this is the name of the game is going to be. We've seen the whole ESG framework that has become more relevant for organizations and cannot kind of look away. And I think employees or future potential candidates are looking beyond the traditional pay, benefits, those work practices. They want to be actively participating in building organizations, right? Creating best practices, whether it is financial, whether it is business, by really giving feedback, by being there. And these are also stories that they share on your social platforms, whether it is your LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. So there is, I think, even the search for talent has kind of, changed to this kind of a platform, right? And it's very important for organization to have a very strong social and digital strategy and how they're going to be reaching out. It's not just the employees, it's also your investors, it's your partners, it's your vendors. So the key stakeholders are more than just your employees. And I think in short, I just want to say that the old traditional approach that most organizations have used, are not going to work anymore. And I think there is compelled, it is imperative that they look at a very holistic approach to brand building.
I think that's fantastic. Thank you, Priya. In such a short time, so many points. Wow. So would you agree then in some way that this whole thing between image and reality seems to be blurring a little bit in the sense that you have to be that way for you to project that image?
I mean, absolutely, without a doubt. And I think, and that's why I say that it's not just in the hands of leadership or just in the hands of a few functions. I think every employee, whether you are in the finance department, right? Let's say financial practices, whether you're in your, corporate social responsibility department. I think every employee is responsible to ensuring that they do business in an ethical way that contributes to sustainability, right? And we're all oriented to think that way. And that's how I think, and I think the youth now and the next generation of employees want to be connected with that larger purpose. What is that social purpose that exists in organization? It's not just about, a job description, a paycheck, and just doing the job, right? It's just
like
more
my mother. Yeah, it's like my mother says, you might as well tell the truth because the truth is going to come out anyway.
Yeah. So what you actually practice, is what is going to create substance in what you're going to be talking about, in the market.
Brilliant. So let me take that forward into the question to Willis. Thank you so much, Priya. That was fantastic. Can this or is there something else that affects attracting the right talent? What are the factors of the brand? Is it this transparency? Is it these values? Is it this vision? Or is there something more? Employer brand, how employment brand, how is it used to attract the right kind of talented workforce? Willis, please.
Fantastic, Avinash. Thank you so much. And I really want to take it forward from what Priya also mentioned. I think I was wondering whether Priya had a sneak peek in what I was going to say ahead of time. But anyway, I think I'm glad that we're all synced up on the same note. It's an interesting question for a couple of reasons. The first one being that for the first time in history, we have been faced and bombarded with 5 generational cohorts while the traditionalists are sunsetting, the Gen Z are on the anvil, and most of our our workforce are in the millennial area. So when you talk about that, I think the first thing that comes to your mind is social media. They're 42% of the time on their phones, 150 times a day minimum. So the best thing is, how can I actually capitalize on that being my brand value? And for that, I would like to bring in a concept which I would like to say it's the inside out concept. Gone are the days where we could have facades, we could have hoardings, we could have advertisements say that, okay, what we do inside and proclaim it to be for award-winning corporations. But I think now it's turned to what Priya said, and I think I would divide into three parts. The first part is finding their purpose, and helping them to find their why. Why are they doing what they do is the first area. If you can enlighten that, that gets strong into the second area of authenticity, where leaders walk their talk not just by policy and by SOPs, but also by that unwritten code of ethics. Where everyone's transparent and they really walk the talk in that way. And if both these premises are set right, that gets into the third part, which is the trust is built. And Avinash, I think, and all my fellow panelists, you'll agree that all of us are unpaid brand ambassadors, I may say, of some consumer products or the other, that we tell people. And why do we do that? Because we trust in the product. We believe in something that is there, that product or relationship, right? So, I would like to say that, the same thing that the generation that we have today, the employees, if they're going to take that outside, that satisfaction level, and the social media is so open to them, I don't need an external agency to come and evaluate what purposes and practices are within the organization. It is all going from inside out, and therefore, I would say that this practice of attracting talent, like-minded people coming in, is if the present lot are satisfied, they're going to brand it outside, and that's going to attract more and more people inside. So I think that's the big change that is going to come about. It's going to hit us somewhere or the other. Whatever you invest in your people is going to be an open door policy to the outside world.
Terrific. So what we're talking about this exactly what Priya said, that each one of us is the brand ambassador for the organization. It cannot be delegated to any one department or one group of people. Huh? So does that also work? That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Willis. Does that connect also with Renu, this whole thing about retaining talent? Does that happen automatically as a result of what they've been talking about, or are there something else? Or is there something else that needs to be done from a branding perspective to retain talent?
Thank you, Avinash, for taking it forward, this particular thing. And I think Priya and Wills have strongly said the same, and I would like to echo it. I think retention is still a big subject to deliberate, introspect, and strengthen upon. All the more when the COVID pandemic has produced many unexpected dynamics as an employer. If you are delivering on the employer brand promises, that is what I'm making my recruitment and retaining process more stronger. There are many aspects where we need to deliver for retaining the talent, but I would like to focus on 4 aspects. Shine them through the pre-boarding to our onboarding process.
You look like a
You need to be really all right, great. So you need to be really upfront about your values, who you are as an organization through every stage of your candidate journey, and this is where the candidate will determine that it is an environment, it is a company where I would like to really thrive upon. I would also like to emphasize, like what even Priya was talking about, create the opportunities for connections and communication. There is a study which reveals that employee happiness is 23.3% more correlated, to the connections with the co-workers, your peers, rather than with your direct supervisors. Think of opportunities, as an organization we can create to build the connections, create the belongingness, create the regular interventions and interactions. I think they will be more happy to stick around with the organization. There is one more element I would like to talk about, what Wills is also specifying in terms of the transparency. I think strong management transparency leads to 30% more better employee retention. As a brand value, transparency is one of the hardest to actualize, but it involves being completely honest about what good and what bad in the organization. And believe me, during the tough times, and during the COVID times, we have all witness that, it was a transparency which was keeping the team on board. And this means that the teams are more, feeling inclusive during the business tough times. And this is where, we would like to bring a honest culture and win-win situation. So overall, I would like to, overall, I would like to emphasize only one thing here, that employer brand is a life, it is just not for the recruitment. As an engaged team has the power to bring your business to heights, attract more talent for your team, and create the sustainable business. And it is all lies in the hands of individuals. Thank you.
Lovely, Renu. Thank you. And we take off. Huh? So, Renu, the other thing, taking it forward from what you said,
Yeah.
so you said connectivity has increased a lot. The connectedness
Absolutely.
Connectedness needs to be emphasized, right? I've been working with several organizations now, even during this the pandemic time, and the key challenges that the managers are facing: how do I motivate people even remotely? How do I connect with them? So all of these things are not HR issues, is what I'm hearing from all of you. So that's another very important question. How is the employment brand or an organizational brand? How does it connect with business growth? Is another question that I have. Because when you look at things as departments, it's micro. But when you look at it from an organizational perspective, then it gets more real. So, Puneet, do you have anything that you'd like to share on this, please? The relationship between an employment brand or an employer's brand to business growth.
Absolutely. Thanks, Avinash, for that question. So maybe I'll start with the quote by David Ogilvy. A brand is all the ways a company is perceived and experienced. And I think my esteemed panelists have already talked about the importance and the values that a strong brand brings. Right. So when we look at a brand and the business aspect of it, right? So there is a financial worth of a brand, which is the monetary value. And then there is the perceived worth, which is what your consumers or employees perceive your brand to be. And if you go back in history and look at all the cases of strong brands, you'll always see the perceived value to be more than the financial worth. Now, how do you really contribute in terms of the direct correlation to business, right? So when you look at a brand, there is the corporate brand and there is an employer brand. They're nothing but the two sides of the same coin. It's a cliche, but it's always said that happy employees create happy customers. Or you have another saying which says culture eats strategy for breakfast. When you look at all of these areas, it is your talent that actually makes things happen for your external world, which is your consumers and customers. But if you look at some of the key features of what differentiates a strong brand, like for example, a brand tells your audience who you are, what's your story, what's your purpose. On an external side, it says that to your consumers. On the internal side, it's for your employees or your talent that you have in the organization. Brands build emotional connections. So again, while it connects to the outside world, it also connects a lot to the internal talent. And unless you have that connection internally, it's very difficult to portray that externally. Or for that matter, if brands convey confidence, the financial viability, the future of business, and therefore it also builds a lot of loyalty, not just from consumers, but also from your talent. So when you look at the aspects of a corporate brand and an employer brand, they're actually two sides of the same coin, and each feeds into the other. And it's like the talent that you bring on board through your employer branding efforts leads to a good talent pool that is able to propel the organization forward, which creates strong brand in the market. And it's kind of a circular motion, if I had to put that in a diagrammatic format. And today, I think, as everybody has said, it's a world of technology where millennials know the value of the brands. The reviews that are there on the social media are often the drivers. And I'd like to say that today we've moved from the erstwhile the mechanism of word of mouth to today what is called the word of mouse, because it's so much technology driven. But ultimately, I guess brands, strong brands have a business correlation, whether it is your corporate brand or whether it is the employer brand. It's basically the two sides of the same coin.
Absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much. You spoke about happiness. Happiness is one of my favorite subjects, and happiness, like sadness, cannot really be hidden much. So this thing about authenticity, transparency always happens. Sad, unfortunately, is SAD: stressed, anxious, and disengaged. And we know how many trillions of dollars disengagement costs us. So all of it is connected. Beautiful. The quick story which you must be already aware of is that the two guys were working on the construction site, and one guy was asked that, wow, what are you doing? He said, I'm just laying the bricks. And the other guy was saying, what are you doing? I'm creating a school. So we have to end it with what you said, and Willis with what you said, and Renu with what you said, It is about meaning, the purpose, and the brand story each one of us identifies with. Thank you so much. It's part of our daily life. It cannot be a separate subject. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we move super fast for the White Page people before the next one. Thank you so much.